In 2015, right after the release of DMC4 Special Edition, Hideaki Itsuno and his team began with the development of Devil May Cry 5, which ended with the game's release in March of 2019, which has already been over 11 years after the previous title. And that time definitely shows, because while the fourth entry was a good-looking early PS3 title, Devil May Cry 5 looks fantastic even by today's standards, and despite already being 7 years old itself, with my favorite thing definitely being the massive boss demons that are simply looking quite impressive. What I wasn't that much of a fan of, on the other hand, were the flashy animations in combination with the camera placements in combat. Because when the scene is filled with a group of enemies constantly attacking and throwing you around, in combination with a camera that doesn't allow me to even see where the attacks are coming from, doesn't really support the fun in a fast-paced action game. Anyway, what does support the fun aspect a lot is the soundtrack. Especially the song Devil Trigger from Casey Edwards underlines the game's vibe perfectly. But the heart of the most games, and Devil May Cry is no exception, is the gameplay, which here is pretty straightforward, as you select a level, your character and equipment, and defeat hordes of demons in hack-and-slash combat. The levels themselves are also very linear, but still contain a few corners with secrets, ranging from red orbs and upgrades to secret levels, to feed the player's curiosity. What you will find without looking while making your way through all the stages are opponents, which in Devil May Cry are demons. And here Capcom did a good job, because not only are the enemy designs very detailed and always fit their horrific theme, especially the bosses, from the beginning up until the last mission, you're always confronted with completely new types of enemies with a unique gimmick to them, instead of just slightly different colored versions of the same enemy you see in a lot of other games. And what is even more versatile are the tools the game gives you to combat your foes. For one, the game frequently switches between 3 playable characters, V, Nero, and later Dante, that all have completely unique combat styles that get expanded as you progress. As V, you rarely engage into combat directly. Instead, you control your familiars, Griffin, Shadow, and Nightmare, and only step in to finish off weakened enemies with your cane. The bird-like familiar Griffin grants V more ability options like a double jump or gliding around, and can fire off a variety of ranged attacks. Shadow, that looks more like a panther, and morphs parts of his entire body to unleash physical attacks. And last but not least, Nightmare, that seems somewhat like a golem and acts as V's replacement for the Devil Trigger form. Nightmare can attack on its own when activated, or you can mount him and unleash a combination of heavy attacks on your opponents. As Nero, your main weapons are the chargeable blade Red Queen and the Blue Rose revolver that can also release charged shots. Further, because Nero is missing an arm, he can use prosthetic weapons, ranging from a huge fork to Easter eggs like the Mega Man Mega Buster. On top of that, he gets access to the Evil Legacy that grants him the power to utilize the so-called Grim Grips that work a bit like a grappling hook. As Dante, you gain access to the most varied arsenal. During your playthrough, you can choose between 10 weapons, 6 melee and 4 ranged weapons that are combined with 4 combat styles. The ranged weapons include his classic dual pistols Ebony and Ivory, a rocket launcher called the Kalina Ann, the shotgun Coyote A, and the head Dr. Faust that fires the red orbs that work as the game's currency. His melee weapons are the swords Rebellion, Devil Sword Spada and Devil Sword Dante, the motorcycle blade Cavalier, the combat gloves and gear Balrog, and the nunchuck King Cerberus. All of his equipment, as mentioned before, can be combined with his 4 combat styles: Trickster, Swordmaster, Gunslinger and Royal Guard. With Trickster, Dante mainly gains a speed advantage. The Swordmaster style expands the moveset of melee weapons, with the Gunslinger doing the same for ranged weapons. And last but not least, the Royal Guard, that gives you the ability to block and perfectly block incoming attacks, to charge up a rage meter that eventually releases a powerful counterattack. All of these abilities and equipment for the 3 characters can also be upgraded with the help of red orbs that you gain from defeating opponents or destroying structures. The only thing you cannot upgrade by using red orbs are the health bar and Devil Trigger Gorge, at least not directly, as the purple and blue orbs needed for that upgrade can be found in missions but also bought at Nico's shop. Now before we come to the story section, I want to give you the chance to skip to the timestamp shown on the screen right now. The game begins with an introduction to the main characters Dante, who is in a fight with the Demon King, Nero and V. We are then already put in the shoes of Nero for the first time. We fight our way through some basic enemies until we reach the place where Dante, Trish and Lady fought and were defeated by the Demon King. Nero tries his luck but quickly suffers a similar fate. But right before the Demon King could finish us off, Dante comes back on his feet, transforms into his demonic Devil Trigger form and buys time for V and Nero to flee. Dante loses and demonic tentacle structures begin overgrowing the world around them. We get a 1 month's time skip and see Nero with the arms specialist Nico in her car driving through a demon-infested street. They reach a military checkpoint that is about to be overrun by demons. Nero gets out of the car, heads right at the enemy and begins to let loose. Following some demon stomping and a quick flashback scene that shows us Nero lost his arm to a demon attack, he and Nico arrive in a more urban area where we get to engage in our first actual boss fight against the giant demon Goliath. When we win the fight, V appears. Goliath seems to be confused of him helping us before being finished off. Nero then takes off once again, fighting hordes of demons until we reach a building that I would say is somewhat resembling a museum. Here we face a flying demon that, funnily enough, looks more like a biblically accurate angel. Upon defeating it, it is revealed that Lady has been trapped inside the monster. But before we know if the unconscious woman will be alright, we get to play as V for the first time. He and his familiars knock some sense into some unwelcome visitors from the underworld until they reach the shape-shifting tentacle demon Nidhogg. With him out of the way, a huge demon structure tower collapses, revealing a much larger 4-legged demon attacking the city. One of its attacks causes the ground to burst and V to drop down into the town's catacombs. When he finally reaches the surface again, he is met by the Elder Garian Knight, that got tasked by Malphas, an abomination consisting of 3 Roman torsos stuck together, to end the life of the blood relatives of Sparta. With him out of the way, we are back to Nero, who is going after Gilgamesh, the gigantic 4-legged demon that caused V to take an underground detour. Bringing him to his knees further weakens the demonic structures, and we actually have more good news for once. Because Lady has woken up. She tells us that Trish has been captured as well, but she doesn't know what happened to Dante. At the same time, V appears, and him and Nero head out again towards a demon tower structure reaching beyond the clouds. Upon reaching the remains of what used to be V's home, the two split up, as V tells Nero he is going to look for the Devil Sword Sparta. Nero, on the other hand, makes his way through the tower all the way up to the throne of Urizen. You will have to fight him, and like the first time, you are very obviously supposed to lose. And once you do, we get a flashback of a few weeks prior. Here we find out that V was the one giving Dante the job to take on the Demon Lord. He's also the one we take control of as soon as we leave the flashback. After once again defeating countless enemies, V reaches the Devil's Sword and also finds the injured Dante. He heads over to the unconscious man, lifts the sword and lowers it into his chest. We then get to witness Dante's dream, where he and his brother are instructed by their mother to hide and flee on their own if she doesn't come back. Right after that, Dante wakes up and gets briefed by V on what happened in the months he was asleep. Following their little chat, Dante heads out, while V stays behind with his body becoming weaker and weaker. On his way back to the tower, things go more or less smooth, until the demonic knight Cavalier Angelo stands in our way. When said demon is about to meet his maker, not only does a bike begin to rebuild from its body, the demon also releases Trish that has been trapped inside like Lady before her. When the sickly V arrives, who is trying to follow Dante, Dante leaves Trish with him and drives away. We then switch back forward in time to the moment when Dante intercepts Nero's fight with the Demon Lord. And this time, in the role of Dante, we are actually able to at least somewhat put him in his place. But the Demon King doesn't really seem concerned by the fact that he just found his master in us. Instead, he only recognized that the demonic tree Glyphos has finished growing before disappearing, leaving only a huge puddle of blood behind. Shortly after that, we are reunited with all of our allies, including Nico and Dante meeting for the first time. As an introduction gift, she gives him the white-haired Dr. Faust and Dante pulls off his best Michael Jackson impression while trying it on. After said performance, Dante, V and Nero make their way up to the tree following Urizen, trying to stop him from reaching the demonic tree's fruit. On their way, the three have to face several individual challenges, like V having to defeat bosses we fought throughout the game before to free his familiars, before running into the demon Malphas that is definitely too much for him in his weakened state. Luckily for him, Nero steps in just at the right moment and takes her out of the picture once and for all. Dante, on the other hand, spends his time gliding through demons like a knife through butter until he comes face to face with Cerberus. After rage-baiting and beating up the three-headed guard dog of the underworld, we get another dancing performance from Dante after he pulls out the nunchaku-like weapon Cerberus from the demon's dissolving body. Back to V and Nero, where V explains that Urizen is actually Dante's half-brother Virgil. Before we are already back to Dante, who is confronting his brother, that is about to eat the demon tree's fruit. Virgil consumes the fruit anyways, granting him immense power, in exchange for his last bit of humanity. But even though, he is still overpowered by Dante again, and when the other two arrive, V insists on finishing off himself. When he gets there, instead of ending Urusel once and for all, V reconnects with him to form the original Virgil again. The brothers exchange some blows before Virgil leaves again, telling Dante to recover before they fight again. Dante tells Nero that he doesn't want him to go after Virgil because he is certain that he is his son. The confused Nero then stays behind while Dante makes his way to end his brother's plans once and for all. On his way up, Dante is interrupted by V's former familiars multiple times, but they definitely are no real threat and find their end. Right before we reach the top, we get a scene showing Nero reversing his decision to leave the fight to Dante and heading towards the fight as well. On the top, Virgil and Dante begin their duel. They end up transforming into their devil forms, but before they can exchange blows again, Nero interrupts them, transformed into his own devil form himself. He beats some sense into them, which ends up changing their minds completely. Dante and Virgil end up working together to stop the underworld from taking over the human realm, by sealing the portal from the other side. We see Nero going after the remaining demons on the overworld, Trish and Lady continuing to work at the Devil May Cry office, and Dante and Virgil fighting demons and each other in the underworld. And the game's story ends right here. Now, despite some issues with the camera and the combat becoming quite confusing with the sheer amount of opponents on screen, the game's mission structure, rewarding progression, over-the-top action and plot, and enjoyable sound art and design always made me come back for a few missions of mindless yet challenging fun until the credits rolled. So if you're looking for a well-made action game for in between bigger titles like I did, or just want some fun action in general, Devil May Cry 5 is an easy recommendation, especially when it's on sale. So if you watched until now, first of all, thank you for that. If you have the time, feel free to tell me your opinion on the game in the comments. And if you liked what you saw, maybe consider liking and subscribing if you don't want to miss any future videos. And I hope to see you next time.